Hi everyone, this is Julianne Victoria. Welcome to my channel. This is our 7th video, I believe, in our astrological studies series, where I'm covering what I call the 5 main things to know in astrology, both Vedic and Western, and that's the houses, the signs, and the planets, which I've already covered. And there is a playlist on my channel if you're new here, and welcome. And then I have yet to cover the elements and the numerology, very basic numerology. And today we're going to talk about the elements. So we have our 4 main elements. Most watching this probably know, especially if you're coming from tarot or the tarot community and you want to learn about astrology. So we have earth, water, fire, and air. The signs of the zodiac will all correlate to one of those. So to go through, the earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. There'll be 3 per element, and this is their elemental trine. The fire signs are Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. The air signs are Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. And what am I missing? Water. The water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. So those, you can find lists of that all over the place. What's important to understand there, and I will say this is more of a Western astrology thing than Vedic astrology. Yes, you look at the elements in Vedic astrology. It's not so much of an impactful thing when reading a chart, and you could leave this part out. You don't need to know the elemental stuff to read a chart, your own natal chart, etc. But it adds more layers to understanding. So it is something I tend to look at more in Western astrology. If you're new here, I practice both. But it is something in Vedic. I do mention it briefly in my book, Shedding Light on Jyotisha, Vedic Astrology for Beginners. But it is something I notice and I tend to take note of, take note of, right? It's been a while since I've just sat down and made a video in Western astrology because it's more emphasized. It's more important when it comes to understanding all the angles in Western astrology. So the oppositions, the trines, the squares, the sextiles, the quincunx, and all those other minor angles in between, because it has to do, the harmoniousness or disharmony of them has a lot to do with the elements associated with the signs of the zodiac. And secondarily, which is not looked at a whole lot, the elemental energies of the planets. And I'm actually going to read from Ptolemy's Tetrabiblos for that, where it says old man. That's just my, you're probably like, what is that? My modified Metelli tarot, personally modified. So yeah, Western and Vedic astrology, the elements of the signs, the earth, air, fire, water signs are the same. Significant, and it's up to you how much you want to go into working with the elements in Western astrology. Some weight, but not as significant in Vedic astrology, unless you start to go into the Ayurvedic side. And Vedic astrology will also, so the signs have the 4 elements, but it also takes into account ether. It's like the 5 element of Vastu, which is, you can call it like Vedic feng shui, like Jupiter's associated with ether. And if you go deeper into the Ayurvedic side of astrology and astrology, Vedic astrology is very important in Ayurveda, which is the Vedic medicine. And then you go into the doshas, which takes into account Vata, Pitta, and Kapha constitutions of both the planets and the signs. That at all is not necessary to read astrology. So I will link a blog post I wrote ages ago, I think like 8 years ago, which summarizes that up. And I do include the tridosha or tridhatu concept, which not all resources on Ayurvedic astrology will do. But I'll link that blog post below if you want to know a little bit more of that. because it is an aspect of Vedic astrology, but again, it's not at all necessary to read a chart unless you really want to learn to read a chart for health reasons in depth. Okay, I feel like I'm rambling here. So yeah, there's those 4 elements. In Western astrology, trines will be signs of the same elements. Of course, there can be a trine and planets are on the cusp and they're in different elements, but a trine is the matching elements because there's 3 signs per element. Squares will be challenging because those elements are off or adjacent sign elements in a square. And I will do a live where we go through sample chart readings and kind of sum all this up once I'm done. Sextiles are the harmonious same gender signs. So earth and water element is feminine and fire and air is masculine. So, you know, if a planet is in, let's say, Earth Taurus and it's sextiling, so 2 signs away, a planet in water Cancer, they're both feminine elements, so it's harmonious. So these are just layers to consider. Again, Vedic astrology, not so much, but it can add some interesting layers to reading a chart. Western astrology, much more emphasized and very much a part of how the angles are working. Because in Vedic astrology, the planets have specific drishtis, which are their aspects, but it's certain house angles. It's not all the same. Okay, I hope that's making sense. Again, when I do kind of I'm pretty sure I'll do it live, a live chart study, it'll make more sense, but just take note of that for now. Okay, so now let's talk about in Western astrology, the very specific elemental energies, and I want to say it that way because it's not the exact elements. The elemental qualities, actually that's a better word, associated with planets. So I have my little summary list here because this is something I don't think of a whole lot. But again, it's another layer to add in, and many astrologers, from what I've seen over the years, don't go into this a whole lot because you can work with the elements of the signs. But the planets do have qualities to them. So to sum up, the sun is hot and dry, and it's very logical if you think about it. The moon is warm and moist or humid. Mercury is, because he's neutral, moist and dry. Venus is, my notes, I say lukewarm and moist or humid. Mars is hot and dry, right? The hot, fiery planet. Jupiter is warm and moist, and Saturn is cold and dry. Now I'm going to go deeper into that for those who are really interested, because then if you're a Western astrologer interested in that track, this is very important as you get into Western, if you expand your studies in this way, Western mysticism and alchemy. So it's really important to kind of start to understand these. So I'm going to read that section from, again, Ptolemy's Tetrabiblos here. It's not very long, but it gives, of course, you know, it comes from Ptolemy. So it's the best explanation or understanding of this. So of the power of the plants is the section, planets, not plants, of the power of the planets. The active power of the sun's essential nature is found to be heating and, to a certain degree, drying. This is made more easily perceptible in the case of the sun than any other heavenly body by its size and by its obviousness of its seasonal changes. For the closer it approaches to the zenith, the more it affects us in this way. And you probably know this if you're here, but Western astrology is based upon the seasons. So very much where the sun is hitting our planet, that determines our seasons based on the equinoxes, the solstices, etc. And I have a video discussing the differences between Western and Vedic that is linked below if you have not seen it yet. Okay. Most of the moon's power consists of humidifying clearly because it is close to the earth and because of the moist exhalations therefrom. Its action, therefore, is precisely this: to soften and cause putrefaction in bodies for the most part, but it shares moderately also in heating power because of the light which it receives from the sun, so hence it's warm. It is Saturn's quality chiefly to cool and moderately to dry, probably because he is furthest removed from both the sun's heat and the moist exhalations about the earth. Both in Saturn's case and in that of the other planets, there are powers too, which arise through the observation of their aspects to the sun and the moon, for some of them appear to modify conditions in the ambient in one way, some in another, by increase or decrease. The nature of Mars is chiefly to dry and to burn, in conformity with his fiery color and by reason of his nearness to the sun, for the sun's sphere lies just below him. So that's talking about the spheres, which maybe I'll insert here a chart for you if I can find it. Okay. The nature of Mars is chiefly to dry. Oh, sorry, I did that. Jupiter has a temperate active force because his movement takes place between the cooling influence of Saturn and the burning power of Mars. He both heats and humidifies, and because his heating power is the greater by reason of the underlying spheres, he produces fertilizing winds. Venus has the same powers and tempered nature as Jupiter, but acts in the opposite way. For she warms moderately because of her nearness to the sun, but chiefly humidifies, like the moon, because of the amount of her own light and because she appropriates the exhalations from the moist atmosphere surrounding the earth. Mercury in general is found at certain times alike to be drying and absorptive of moisture, because he never is far removed in longitude from the heat of the sun. So Mercury's always within 28 degrees of the sun on either side in the sky, and hence in astrology. And again, humidifying because he is next above the sphere of the moon, which is closest to the earth, and to change quickly from one to the other, inspired as it were by the speed of his motion in the neighborhood of the sun itself. Good old Quicksilver. So that is just a summary of the elements, their associations to the signs, and their qualities associated with the planets. Now, in Vedic astrology, the qualities will be based upon the doshas of Ayurveda, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And again, I'll link below the blog post. I can't talk today. The blog post where I summarized that up many years ago, but that does branch off into Ayurvedic and the astrology of Ayurveda, which again is not necessary to read a chart, but definitely can bring a lot more insights concerning health and physical constitution to an individual. All right, I just wanted to do a quick summary here, because this sort of is a secondary topic, as well as the numerology, which I'll discuss next, basic numerology, to understanding the planets, the signs, and the houses. That's your key foundation, and how all that and the ruling planets interact. Okay. Those are our elements in astrology. Thank you guys for being here. Today is Thanksgiving, so thank you so much, those who have been following my channel for years, and those who are new.